everybody. Welcome back to Factutainment, where we're going to be reviewing the fifth episode of the first Walking with Dinosaur series, Spirits of the Ice Forest, which is set in the Middle Cretaceous period around 120, well, not 126, 106 million years ago. I'm Zero Yeti, and I'm joined by my co-host, Aura Master.
Hi, everybody.
Also joined by our friend Braden.
Hello, hello.
And then Bethany.
Hi, Dr. Nick.
And then we're joined across the pond by Avery.
Hi, I am just Aura, but British.
Are you? Are you really?
I don't think you're that bad.
God, you need to go up a few more octaves. There are some dogs that didn't hear you.
Oh, my apologies.
I mean, there's that, and I also like women too much to be Aura. But,
Damn. I like women like a normal amount.
Nick says he's
gay.
bisexual, but only for cartoon women.
Why is that weird?
Yeah, no, I get that.
Thank you.
Okay. So this episode is set, it's called Spirits of the Ice Forest, and it's set in the Antarctica-Australia Rift Valley, because at this point in time, Antarctica, Australia, and New Zealand were still all one continent. They hadn't split apart.
As was South America.
No, South America actually split off a little before this.
Oh, so it would have still been close.
So this would just be Gia.
What's Matt skate doing?
Yeah, because the pan went up north.
Thank you, Brayden.
Yeah, so Antarctica and so Africa, South America were one thing that they split from Australia, India, Antarctica, New Zealand around 140 million years ago, and then later South America and Africa split apart.
Yes, so they still would have been close, but not joined.
So one major, I guess, the first issue with this episode.
They said that in the episode that they were still joined, so that's one inaccuracy to start.
Yeah, one episode is this episode is set 106 million years ago. Almost nothing in this episode lives at 106 million years ago. The creatures are either like older, as in terms like they lived like 110 or some odd million years ago, or they're younger and they lived like 90. So they just kind of put an arbitrary middle point and just put everything in there. But this is set at the South Pole, and the main focal creature, which is the creature we'll probably start with, is, and this is an animal I struggle to say the name of constantly, Lineaellosaura, or Lineaellosaura, because it's spelled Leallynasaura. It's
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
Thank you. Liaellosaura. There we go.
Thank you, Australia.
I'd like to buy cops in it, Pat.
Thank you, Australia. And the thing is, this isn't even named after like one of the Aboriginal names for a dinosaur. This is named after a girl whose name was Linealia.
Who calls their child Leah? Whatever.
So some background on Lineaellosaura. Its name means Linealen's lizard. As a genus of small herbivorous ornithischian dinosaur, lived throughout the early Cretaceous of Australia between 118 and 110 million years ago. So it was a bit.
So it was close.
It was about 4 million years off, yeah. Which isn't that egregious. At least it still lives in
which actually does kind of mean that I think it's feasible that some might have existed. We just don't have evidence of that.
So it was first discovered in Dinosaur Cove, Victoria, Australia in 1987 by Mitchell Caldwell during a dig run by Tom Rich and Pat Vickers-Rich, who described it after his daughter Linnea Lynn Rich in 1989. So Lineaellosaura reached around 100, not 100, reached around 1/2 foot tall and measured around 3 feet in length.
100 half feet tall.
So it's like the size of a turkey-ish.
Yes.
See, this fits in with Thanksgiving.
And it's depicted in this episode as fairly scaly, small, squat. It's very much interpreted as a hypsilophodon, which it's now been interpreted that it was more basal, more close related to maybe like Dryosaurus, than more advanced small ornithischians like hypsilophodon.
Basil. I already
Just if you want to know what basal means, it's
using
just
the turkey for us.
it's a more base form of a creature, say like an ancestor that leads to a variety of other like descendants.
Yeah.
So in this case, Lielinosaur would be more similar to Dryosaurus as a kind of basal typical form, rather than others, small dinosaurs in that family of that time.
So the holotype specimen is a skull, and then some other postcranial remains were later found.
Yeah, but from what I understand, we've only got very partial remains for it.
Well, we have
Holotype.
the holotype itself is a skull and some partial bones. There's two
I didn't
nearly.
know they had V2.
Oh, we
I didn't know they had VTubers this far ago. A long ago.
There's two nearly complete skeletons known,
Oh,
but they were found later, and there was some issues because
they
were
have been
missing the
found?
skulls, so it
Would
was
they have
hard
been
to
found?
attribute it to exactly if this was Lineosaurus or not. But another one was found with a partial skull, so I believe it's all been now considered the same creature.
Would they have happened to have been found after Walking with Dinosaurs was released?
Yes.
Thought so.
Well, one was.
There's a lot of baby murder in this episode.
Actually, not
Specifically
that
these
much.
No,
Yeah,
not really.
there's hardly any.
So,
One.
I guess the first inaccuracy of the Lineosaura model is that
Would be-
Lineosaura is actually known to have possessed remarkably long tails
Oh.
in life.
Lemur.
Yeah, rather than the kind of stubby tail we get in the show.
Stumpy leg.
Oh yeah, like proportional to body size, that is an enormous tail. That's like an iguana tail. That's like kind of like iguana proportions for a tail.
Yeah. They have remarkably long tails, which there was some debate whether or not the tails actually belong to Lineosaura, but I believe the current consensus is now that they do actually indeed belong to Lineosaura.
As compared to a relatively stubby tail here.
Tell me more. Tell me more.
And it's also believed that they likely had feathers in life. So there's like the Walking with Dinosaurs reconstruction. And here's what some modern consistence is thought of it looked like.
Especially if they've got those very long tails, because if you had something that long and thin in these very cold climates, that would be a recipe for freezing to death just because of surface area.
Is also
they need their long tails. They need their long feathery tails for dusting high shelves.
So the Lineosaur tail is comprised of 71 vertebrae, and it's basically 3 times the length of the body. And it is thought that these tails were actually fairly flexible. And part of there's no definitive way to prove it unless we find like a mummy. But one hypothesis for Lineosaurus' long tails is that they used them like squirrels did.
Yeah, I have one of these living under my porch.
But they used them like squirrels did to wrap themselves up with it to sleep.
Oh,
See if
that's
I can
sweet.
find art of it. Yeah. This is also another, like, it's a modern trend in paleo art to just depict them as fluff balls.
They're just like us,
Which
Brayden.
I guess if they're living in
Um,
very cold climates during the winter, it wouldn't be unlikely for them to be
You got
kind
the
of
the puffin patterning.
yeah.
Puff puff pass.
there you go.
The puff and pass.
See, look at the turkey.
My God.
Wasn't that what we called that location in that Paleo D&D campaign?
Puff puff pass.
Yes, because my character was like the first dragon in this civilization, and his name was Puff Puff.
Oh,
I remember that campaign. That was fun.
but fluffy. And there's this design that's pretty cool.
Bird.
Yeah, but I said, especially with the size of them, I think it's very unlikely that they weren't insulated at all.
It's also likely
Yeah,
that
I will say
they
that
are shown digging in the episode, but it's likely that they actually fully burrowed.
I will say in this episode, I commented on this in the video. The practical effects kind of weren't up to snuff because they had a puppet they used sometime for this dinosaur, and its mouth really bunched up around the corners.
Yes, and it probably is just because they were probably fifth episode out of 6, probably starting to run out of money.
Well, I think that's the thing of they had it opening and closing its jaws a lot, and I think
Yeah,
the
you can
issue.
kind of see it in that one picture.
Yeah, I think the issue is that. Okay, apparently not. The issue is they add the extra skin so that it like stretches so that you can open and close the puppet, but they didn't like make sockets or anything for it to like go into, so it just kind
Or
of
didn't
bunches
make
up
it
on
like,
the
or
side.
didn't make it like elastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it punches up.
it's probably what they should have done.
I think they should have made a sock puppet, and this was the only sock puppet for the show, and they never explain it.
So this is another thing of it. So obviously has cheeks in the episode. I should bring this up, and I probably should have brought this up for Stegosaurus. As for dinosaurs, like non-theropod dinosaurs, it's kind of up in the air whether or not they had cheeks.
That's because that's something that just won't be preserved, quite obviously. So we're just not sure.
It's
I'm
so
pretty sure some
it
of those
would
dinosaurs were
make
tweaked up.
it would make biomechanical sense for a herbivorous animal that's going to be chewing
To
a
have,
lot
yeah.
to have cheeks, but due to the structure of the anatomy of a lot of their skulls, they don't support muscle-like cheeks like we have.
So it could just be
Because
skin,
our
if
cheeks are
anything.
quite literally just muscle, with like a thinner skin on the inside and the outside. It could be that like some reptiles, they just like Avery said, had skin cheeks to keep it in.
Mm-hmm.
I'm posting a message in the Discord chat because I remember this being brought up before. If you can pull this image open,
It does also
there
remind me of
was
the debate on whether or not T-Rex had lips.
if you can pull that image up on the
The
stream.
Transformers
There
one.
was a yes, pull it up on the stream. There was a Dinobots comic in the 2005 IDW continuity where I heard this another paleontologist talk about this, how they drew some of the Dinobots with cheeks because at the time that was an idea that dinosaurs had cheeks like that because they were trying to make the Dinobots look more accurate as opposed to when they were in the mid 80s.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oi, Grimlock. Sorry.
Hey, Grimlock.
And so it's like it's not like a major inaccuracy that's like, oh, it obviously didn't have this feature. It could very well have had thin flesh like flesh and skin cheeks, just not muscle mammalian style cheeks. It's sort of like how we think most dinosaurs had lips if they didn't have a beak, but they didn't have mammal like lips. They
They weren't
had
muscular that could like
lizard like
track or
lips.
move.
Yeah.
They didn't have DSLs.
To be fair, I've been holding back on every time you say cheeks. I've been holding back a snicker every time.
I already made the cheeked up joke. Y'all talked over it.
And then
Yeah.
another thing that they mention is they mentioned in the episode how Lineosaura had very large eyes, and they depict the animal with having very large eyes compared to its
Size.
the size of its skull. Yeah,
They
comparatively
didn't
large eyes.
seem they didn't seem that big, but that was also because that puppet does not have moving eyelids.
Yeah.
Yeah, but relative to their skull, their eyes are on the larger side.
So, this is supported by the fact that the two skulls that we do have fairly large eyes, which could definitely be an adaptation for low light conditions. Like larger eyes typically help in low light conditions. It should also be noted that this may also just be an anachronism due to the fact that the two skulls of Lineosaur we have are both of juveniles.
So it could be kind of
And
baby
younger
syndrome.
animals tend to have larger eyes. Yes.
They were just the ugly ones.
So it's until we find the skull of an adult, we don't know for certain.
Yeah.
And then just some stuff about the animal, it's missing the long tail. Its neck is a bit too long. Overall, it's really reconstructed in the episode as a Hypsilophodon, sort of in anatomy, which, fair enough. We do think Hypsilophodon had feathers. We do think
as well.
Hypsilophodon had a comparatively decent. It was similar size, likely filled similar role in ecological role. It should be noted that these two are not that closely related. They're not like each other's very distant relatives, but it'd be sort of like saying that you're comparing an orangutan to a baboon, and it's
they are related.
They are related. They are both large animals with no tails. Well, some baboons have tails, but large primates, no tails, eat a lot of fruit. But they are fairly distantly related, and so a lot of their similarities may actually just be convergence.
Mm-hmm.
There was a part in that. There's also a part in this episode where this dinosaur picks up one of its young by the neck, like a cat would carry its young, except it just looks like it bites this thing on the head because this dinosaur does not have the scruff to do that.
Yeah, it was a little weird looking.
Also, it has hands. It would probably have picked it up with its hands. Because the reason cats and other animals pick their babies up with their mouths is they do not have hands.
That's another option.
Yeah.
There's also,
That's another thing. The arms in the Walking with Dinosaur model are probably a bit too small.
Oh.
Yeah.
There was also the one child that died, which was the unborn egg, which the thing just ate.
Which that's the thing
egg.
chickens do. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually just a very common behavior in nature. So
I think I was I was not paying attention because I think the other ones that I thought were baby murder were not in fact baby murder. It was adult ones being eaten.
There was attempted baby murder a couple times, but yeah.
Yeah.
The polar allosaur tried to kill a baby Metaburosaurus before backing down. The Coolosuchus tried to kill baby Leonellosaura before missing. It ate a dead one, which I'm not sure if the dead one was an adult or a baby.
Even then, that's not baby murder because he didn't kill it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's baby recycling.
Now I'm disappointed. D-list episode.
But yeah, so where do we want to rank Lineosaura first in this episode?
I think I'd go C. It's a reasonable attempt, but it's not the most accurate of.
Yeah.
Like the thing that gets me is its tail's not long enough and it's naked.
And its arms are a little small.
Put some clothes on.
If it was fluffy, S tier. But I think it's also really neat that we have a focused dinosaur episode about a small ornithopod, which usually in every paleo media are just exist to be murdered by something else.
Yeah, it's like in Jurassic Park Operation Genesis, where the only one-star dinosaur is the Dryosaurus.
I would say
Listen, they
this
know
is
their target
like a
audience.
B for me. What do the rest of you think?
And I think
I
it's C, personally.
think I'd be good with a B.
Yeah,
I
this sounds good.
Because I'm stupid and not thinking of all the inaccuracies, so I'm just thinking, oh, pretty good.
I'm
Yeah,
thinking low B or high C.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Yeah,
Because
I'd
Okay.
go for a high C right now.
I just
B.
wasn't
I
super
see
invested
Ecto-Cooler.
with this dinosaur.
I was going to say, one other thing I want to mention is just its general behavior in the episode. It's shown living in, like, complicated flocks.
There's no evidence for that.
No, they were clans. They clearly said clans, and then the clans clashed.
Okay.
What should say it was
They're,
They
a
they're
clash
shown
as clans.
living in clans, and they're very much reminiscent of meerkat clans, which there's no direct evidence for. I will say, however, we do have evidence in birds like sparrows and finches.
Sparking Zero.
Ones with guns. But yeah, we have sparrows and finches, and they have fairly complicated flock dynamics, and they form flocks that fight with each other. So it's not unreasonable that they would have done this.
It's not completely out of the wheelhouse. We just don't really have any.
And I like the
evidence
added
for it.
touch of like they have a sentry, which would make sense if you're a foot and a half tall.
With big fucks just wandering around trying to kill you. Yeah.
Okay, let's go with the. Let's move on to. I want to pull up.
the Leshisaurus.
The first non-dinosaur of the episode.
Flat Front Friday.
Yeah, one of the last kind of big predatory amphibians that we had during this period.
Just a
This
penis.
is like just uncanny, but
It looks like a backrooms monster in some of these pictures.
Yeah, because as they said in the episode, in most places in the world, they got outcompeted by crocodiles.
And as Beth continues to say, it looks like a penis. Which
I just think they're cool, such as many.
I just remember a shot of one from the Disney movie Dinosaurs, but
Coolosuchus dinosaur.
Disney's
Get it?
dinosaurs.
Cool, such
Because-
as Coolosuchus.
it might not be Coolosuchus itself. But
No, it is.
Wait, wasn't this thing like the big bad guy of dinosaurs, or am I crazy?
No, they were just a quick shot where it like swallowed the egg for a second and then spat it back out.
So they're quitters. Gotcha.
Yeah. It appears for like 5 seconds.
Yeah. I don't know why, it just sticks out in my memory in particular for some
Why doesn't
reason.
it have holes on its back like those frogs?
I think those are just like dimples.
Yeah, these are just spots.
Dimples.
But yeah,
I used to have
Coolosuchus.
I think he's a little guy.
Here's a size
Flat fuck
comparison.
Friday, you fucking losers.
Yeah, they were actually really big.
So again, Coolosuchus appears too early because Coolosuchus, the episode set 106 million years ago. Coolosuchus lived around 120 million years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Its fossils have been found in Victoria, Australia, as well. So it's like the same place that they found Linealosaura. So we know those two probably lived together.
It makes sense that it would be in Australia based on where, this episode took place.
And here's an eating one.
Oh no! It's Hungy.
Yeah, because the episode starts with two of those dinosaurs we just talked about before, like frozen, and this thing just comes out of a pond and eats it.
Yeah.
I would do the same, to be honest.
So the first remains of Kulosuchus were unearthed during a 1978 dig at a site known as the Punch Bowl near the town of San Remo.
Because somebody pissed in it.
Over the next 2 decades, several more remains would be uncovered. However, specimens weren't officially named as Kulosuchus after paleontologist Lindsay Kuhl in 1997.
Was it also spelled with a K?
Yes.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Was she married? Was she married? Is the Kool-Aid Man?
Don't know.
Was there a Mr. Cool?
So it's estimated to have reached between 13 and 16 feet in length and upwards of 1,000 pounds.
Yeah, that's getting into kind of not the biggest of modern crocodiles, but getting pretty fucking up there in size.
Leslie Cool.
She does look cool.
Very cool.
Let's see if there's a Wikipedia article on her, but there isn't.
Oh, Leslie Cool's still alive? What the fuck?
I know.
He's in my house right now.
Years.
No, she can't be in my head.
Because you're gay.
What?
It's actually kind of surprising she hasn't got a Wikipedia article, honestly. That there's been no nerd out there who's gone, oh,
It's kind of weird.
Leslie Cool.
Here's another depiction of Kulosuchus. So, Kulosuchus is something known as a temnospondyle, which was a group of amphibians, which was one of the first groups of amphibians. And
aren't they some of the largest amphibians you've ever
They
known?
are the largest amphibians we know of. And they lasted from the Carboniferous all the way into the Cretaceous, but they went extinct by around the middle of the Cretaceous. The episode says they were outcompeted largely due to crocodiles. There's other factors that go into it, but definitely the crocodiles may have played a role in it. Also, they may have been outcompeted in other niches by Lissamphibia, which is modern salamanders, frogs, and toads. There's also Sicilians, which I believe are their own group. I'm not entirely sure. I can look that up real fast.
Yeah, I think, isn't the the largest current amphibian, I think it's either the Japanese giant salamander or the kind of hellbender in the States, one of the two.
The hellbender is significantly smaller than the Chinese and the Japanese salamander. They're about half the size.
Fair enough. I knew that one of the two was, But I suppose
Satan
there are some.
doesn't really like the hellbender.
There are some Sicilians. There are some Sicilians that are longer, but not like more massive in weight.
So Lissamphibia also includes Sicilians. Okay, or Sicilians. I always called them Sicilians growing up. Apparently, some people call them Sicilians. I don't care.
I've never been to Sicily.
Yeah, I have only ever heard Sicilians, so I don't know.
So Lissamphibia arose in the Permian, so a bit later than temnospondylus. However, it's been argued by some argument, I'm not sure how much evidence it has, that Lissamphibians descended from temnospondyls. So if that's the case, then Kulosuchus wasn't the last temnospondyl. Speaking of, they call it the last temnospondyl. If Lissamphibia aren't temnospondyls, then that is a correct statement. Kulosuchus were some of the last temnospondyls to exist if Lissamphibia aren't temnospondyls.
Okay, so I googled Hellbender and Hellraiser, and I'm not dissatisfied with what I found.
Okay. So they are shown. The depiction of the episode is actually pretty good.
Yeah, I don't see any big issues.
They're
with it.
shown as being a large aquatic predators, fulfilling a similar role of crocodilians, which is what giant Japanese salamanders do. So,
But just smaller.
but giant Japanese salamanders get 6-7 feet. Yeah, they're chunk boys.
End of thought.
Big
Yeah,
fat
they
nasty
they
salamander.
big.
And they do fulfill a role of crocodilians as semi-aquatic ambush predators.
They just haven't got the big pointy teeth.
Yeah. So Kulosuchus, although capable of walking on land, like shown in the episode, was not well adapted to walk on land. Would have mostly just dragged
Probably would
itself.
mostly avoided it where possible.
Primarily lived in fast-moving rivers and other cold bodies of fresh water, because animals like Japanese giant salamanders that are alive today, they breathe through their skin. In order to do that, they need pretty oxygen-rich cold water.
Fast running, very clean water.
Yes. Hellbenders rely on this a lot as well. Hellbenders are also able to just kind of swallow air too to help out. So they kind of have a couple workarounds.
There was a part in the episode where it was ambushing one of the younger dinosaurs that were the main focus of the episode, and also the prop effect didn't look very good. It looked like a board.
Fair enough.
Yeah, fair.
So I'm pretty sure it was the only prop they used for that. It was mostly CG.
Yeah, I believe so.
It did not open its mouth when it went for that dinosaur.
Yeah, just kind of this one.
Just kind of lunged at it.
Meh.
Yeah, notably eyes on the top of its head, very much like a modern crocodile.
That should also be brought up. Is Kulosuchus is known from fairly. They're busted up remains. There's a decent amount of them, but they're kind of all broken.
All kind of fragmentary, but we have a fair amount of it.
Yeah.
They call it rippy bits.
Which kind of makes sense. Amphibians tend to be a lot more kind of fleshy, so probably don't preserve quite as well as things with tough scales.
And then we also have a fairly
Is
close
that
relative called Sidrops. And this is the bones that have colors on them are the bones that have been found. So you have a pelvis, you have some of the vertebrae, some of the ribs, and then about half a skull. Yeah.
The little flat thing, the Garothorax. I pulled up an image of one of those earlier by accident. I was like, oh, look at this thing.
Yeah.
The one down bottom, the one bottom right, down because you moved it. Keep going. No. There. Left. That one.
It's Flat Friday, everyone.
Is this the Flatwoods monster that everybody keeps talking about?
Maybe. This is a cool depiction. I like the color scheme of this one. That's another thing.
It looks like a drink cup.
That's one thing that might have been an inaccuracy of the episode. Some have argued that much like how many modern amphibians, they if you look at the Japanese giant salamander, which we just had, but I'm not sure if I can find it again. No, that's never mind. There it is. So the Japanese giant salamander, if you look at their skeletons, their head is quite a bit pronounced, but in life they fill it in with muscle and fat and tissue, so it just kind of becomes streamlined. And there's some argument for that with Kulosuchus. This maybe more accurate to do that.
Its body might have been a bit thicker than we portray.
So it's like this as opposed to
Which I suppose
or
if
Flat Fuck Friday.
for like an aquatic ambush predator being like quite muscular, probably likely.
Yeah.
Braden
This
say
is an
fat fuck.
artist rendition of it.
Braden say fat fuck Friday.
Fat Fuck Friday.
Hey, there we go. We got him.
There's a lot of art of it eating Coolosuchus. Not Coolosuchus eating Lineosaura.
Interesting.
He's ready for Thanksgiving.
Not for any particular reason. It was just an asshole.
But yeah, Coolosuchus. Where do we want to put Coolosuchus at?
I'm happy with an A.
Yeah, I'm fine with an A. I like this guy. I like Fat Fuck Friday, man.
Yeah, I like the salamander.
He didn't play that big a role in the episode, but when it did lumber from like the river to the pond, and it sounded like there needed to be a tuba playing.
Okay, and going from one of the best designs, like accurate designs in the series, in Coolosuchus, to I'm gonna close a bunch of these tabs real fast. To one of the most baffling.
The polar
Is this
bear.
real?
So the polar allosaur from Walking with Dinosaurs.
I'm sorry.
Is this a real thing? Because the name Polar Allosaur sounds like something that would be made up.
It's like a regional variant of the Allosaur, like a regional Pokemon,
All right.
like Galarian Allosaur.
Syrian Allosaur.
So the polar allosaur in Walking with Dinosaurs is fairly notorious for it being literally based off of a single foot bone that was found in Australia called an astragalus, which was attributed when it was first found, I think back in the 80s, to being an Allosaurus. This is kind of a wide debate amongst paleontologists because, like, one, Allosaurus is known from the Jurassic and not the Cretaceous. Two, Allosaurus is known definitively from North America and Europe, possibly from Africa as well. None of those are Australia. So it's like one, it's not the same time. It's not the right time. Two, it's not the right continent.
Just
Listen, they had
answer me one thing, Stig. Because you probably know the answers. But did we have any surviving like kind of allosaurids in the Cretaceous at all?
Yes, in the sense that so we'll look at the theropod family tree real fast.
Listen, they had the Allosaurus model already made. They just need to put a new skin on it.
Like, I'm assuming so. I'm assuming that there are, because I think it would be very unlikely for the entire family to, disappear completely.
So you have in the theropod family tree, you have the first branching stuff, which is like Coelophysis, Lineosaurus, Dilophosaurus. Then you have one of the main splits, which is Avarostra. Then you have Tetanurans. Then you have Ceratosauria. Both of these lineages last to the end of the non-avian dinosaurs, and this lineage lasts past it. But this is where you have your Carnotaurans, your Abelosaurs, your Ceratosaurs, all Carnotaurans are Abelosaurs. Then you have a group called Elaphosauros. Then you have everybody else, pretty much. And of those, you have, I believe, this is the group where you have the split of these are more likely megalosaurids and spinosaurids. Then you have allosaurid type animals, and there's another split between Allosaurus more, and then you have stuff that's more Coelurosauria, which includes, I believe, Ornithomimosaurs, Therizinosaurs, Dromaeosaurs, which are your raptors, and your Tyrannosaurs, and also birds, because birds are a subgroup of Pronoraptora, which is the raptors.
Yeah, there's one
Birds.
thing that actually annoys people say is like, oh, birds descended from dinosaurs. I'm like, no. Birds are dinosaurs.
Like, I don't know how accurate it is to say, like, if you're going off of Panoraptora, birds straight up are raptors, which is funny because raptor just means bird of prey, which means that macaws that eat bananas are raptors, but we also have more definitive raptors like hawks and eagles, but not falcons because falcons aren't actually that close related to them. Their
Yeah.
beaks are just weirdly convergent.
Yeah, but that's because the difference, right? Because just for people at home, you never grow out of your ancestry, and that's why we are still apes and we are still mammals.
Throwing shit at each other.
Is it now that leads me to a question though? Is it inaccurate to say we're descended from apes and mammals too because we're not the same species as them?
No, because we're still in those categories. We still are them because those are kind of larger categories.
So
Yeah, but there's also some categories that we're not a part of them anymore. So it's like, would it be inaccurate to say both are true?
What categories are we not part of anymore?
Like I don't know.
because we're still vertebrates.
We're still vertebrates. We're still tetrapods.
We're still,
yeah, but
we're
like
still
Nah,
fish.
I
Technically,
don't have a spine. I don't know about y'all.
We're technically fish. If
Well,
you
even
wanna
though-
be
are
technical.
we really though?
Even
If
though
you
fish
want to
is
be
actually,
less
technical, we're fish. Yeah.
yeah,
No, if you
But
want to be
didn't- but
technical,
didn't
we're
you say that-
crabs.
Didn't you say that fish don't exist because
Yeah,
Somebody-
you also make that argument too.
Okay, so how do you classify a fish? What classifies something as a fish?
So a fish,
in the colloquial sense, is just basically anything that
No,
lives in
well, I
water
would-
and has scales, more or less. That
No,
doesn't
I
have
want the accurate
if you want a
classification of
scientific,
fish.
if you want scientific definition of fish, okay, scientific definition of
yeah,
fish.
because you said fish technically don't exist but do exist.
It's
Something like that.
because it's shit like, for example, like a pufferfish and a salmon are
like
not that closely related.
We are clearly not the same species as like primates and
Yes, we're not the same
Neanderthals and
species,
stuff.
Yeah,
but how the categorization
I heard
works,
you
it
say the
goes
P in-
species, genus,
Yeah,
class.
but
I
how
heard
can
you-
anything be
I heard
descended
you-
from anything at this point? So apparently,
I-
like if you deny that the possibility of dissension and self-existence are both accurate and both applicable, then we get to this point where dissension doesn't even happen anymore. There is no descendants of anything ever.
Okay,
I
so
heard you say primate and not primate.
also
Like in
Whatever.
Pokemon.
also you said Neanderthal, which I don't really want to dive into it, but we're technically Neanderthals as well, because we're
Technically, or
Or
fully the exact same species.
well, no,
Because
we're
we're-
technically a
because we're-
hybrid between
Hybrid. Okay, but is that the same species?
Neanderthals and
and
You're
also we
That's
didn't
also
descend
an
from
argument.
Neanderthals. Neanderthals were a sister species to us.
I'm not hearing a yes. I'm not hearing a definitive yes. We are the same species.
no, we're not the same
We
species.
are not.
Okay, so we're getting to what I'm talking about now.
Do you know what
But-
the definition of a species
This
is?
is the really
to start with?
The definition? No, I'd have to look that up.
The
But that's why.
defin-
But
The
I'm
current
asking-
the really-
biological definition of a species is just any group of animals or
Funny
plants
points rather than
are-
notes.
that can breed and produce fertile offspring. It's known as the biological species concept.
Which that has issues because there's some creatures that can make fertile offspring,
Yes.
even though they're not the same
Yeah,
species.
but that's just because
It's fucking weird.
natural world is just a lot more complex than we can really deal with a lot of the time. But that's kind of the best definition that we kind of have at the moment.
Well, this is
Also-
why we organize things,
This
but
is
we have to. There has to be consistency with the organization, or else it doesn't work.
It is very consistent.
This is the
Well, that's the thing.
This is the
The
really
way you're explaining
esoteric
it
episode.
isn't helping. It isn't sounding very consistent. Because
Not really
like I'm asking
chocolate.
about how we can apply descendants in this. How does it work to be a descendant of something
There are
if it's not
7
applicable to things that are that came way before us?
There are 7
Mhm.
basic principles of a species, and you need to meet 1 or 2 of these in order to be defined as a species. Agosomo species, or for asexual organisms, or biospecies for reproductive isolated sexual organisms, ecospecies based off ecological niches in isolation, evolutionary species based off of lineage, genetic species based off of gene pool, morphospecies based off of form phonology type, and taxonomic species as determined by a taxonomist. Yeah.
This is the really esoteric episode.
Okay,
Yeah. So
but to
generally,
go-
you need to meet 2 of those to be considered a distinct species.
That would take a long time to actually look into what all
But
those
to
words
go
mean and
over
how they-
fish, basically,
fish.
this is what the entire group that's colloquially referred to as fish on a cladogram. Because one thing to talk about with fish is how normal people use it. Is it's a paratype, which means it's not all one selected on a cladogram, which means it's not all this is one group, they're their own thing, we can do other things. Because when you do that, if you were to do that as well, you cannot make a group called fish that includes lampreys, sharks, and salmon, and have it be a solid cladogram that's not paraphyletic, without also including amphibians, and if you include amphibians, you also have to include everything that came from some similar descendant to amphibians, which includes birds,
us.
reptiles, and mammals.
Okay, but what is it about all of these? Because these are examples. This is not a definition. So what is it all about these that puts them in the category of fish that nothing else has?
Okay, so for that, they are defined as a group of animals that are chordates and are vertebrates, and have. You can argue the complexity of brain. Complex brain in a scientific sense just means like it's a brain that's able to do more than like 3 things.
Yeah, more than can sense the environment,
Yeah.
and just more things. Your brain that can do a lot more things.
Because
Than,
you can obviously you can say like, oh, human brain is more advanced than, or at least like is more complex than a salmon brain. But you can also argue a salmon brain is more complex than a worm. So
Yeah.
it's like varying degrees of things.
Okay,
It's relative.
what does it mean
You cut out. Did
to be a chordate? What does it mean to be a chordate?
You have a spinal cord.
Chordate, you have a spinal cord.
Okay. So fish are any creature that has a spinal cord
And vertebra.
and vertebrae.
And it should be noted that the vertebrae do not have to be bone. They can be
also be
cartilage. Because sharks
Can be made of pudding.
Sharks are weird.
But which is what we mean when we say fish don't exist, is that fish would be such a large category that it's kind of meaningless.
I mean,
because fish would include, and by these definitions, which is the only definitions that would be consistent and contain everything we consider fish, would also have to include amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals.
Fish basically refers to every chordate that is not a lancelet, or are they called siphonophores? I forget what the other one. Not siphonophores.
Yeah.
There's
This
another
is
one.
the episode where we're gonna. This is the episode where we're gonna take Braden out to a parking lot and beat him to death. Stop
like a-
asking.
Jeez,
With
if that's
biology
if the
check.
answer to questions is murder, man, I don't want to learn anymore. Send me home.
Tunicates. These are
Tunicates.
tunicates. They have a spinal cord. They do not have a brain. They're weird.
Yeah.
They're weird as fuck.
They're like their own offshoot thing that is actually very ancient and exists to this day, but
And
very
the insane
distinct to
thing
all
about
other animals.
the insane thing about tunicate is this is not how they look like their entire life. They start off resembling a tadpole.
Yeah.
They're weird. They lose all of their fins and organs and just decide to become a sponge.
Okay, so now I have to ask,
Yeah,
why
me
do
too.
we use fish to mean something other than what you've depicted here?
Because it was a colloquial term that has its origins before we knew about genetics and taxonomy and how everything relates to each other. It's just because fish is a term.
Okay, but what does
predates
this
that
mean?
idea.
So this is what a larval tunicate looks like. They're weird. And then
Yeah,
they
but this
become
like
these.
this is pretty much the only thing that is a chordate that's not considered a fish.
There's
If we
also
go
like
lancelets.
Zoidberg.
Because like we absolutely use
these are
fish
much
to mean something
closer to
completely
looking
different.
like fish. Again, they do not have complex brains.
But continue, Braden. Sorry.
Yeah, like we very clearly do not use fish like to like organize and classify things in the way that has been depicted here. Because we don't call things like a lizard a fish or a bird a fish.
We don't, but that's the point. Is that fish is kind of useless because for it to be consistent, at least scientifically speaking, we would have to include those, which is why generally scientists don't really use.
And the thing
no,
is,
that's not the thing.
fish isn't even the only time we do this. But granted, fish are not nearly as bad as trees.
Yeah, that's a whole other.
But the thing is, So in order to be accurate to this definition of fish, but if we changed what the definition of what the classification of a fish is into something else, like we seem to be doing in our real life usage of the term fish, then it suddenly changes.
So if you want fish to be a non-paraphyletic group, and to use it colloquially, we would need to come up with a different term analogy for anything that's more closely related to a lungfish than a shark.
Yeah, because in science we just don't use it because it just wouldn't. Even if we change the definition a bit, it still just wouldn't be useful.
In
Because
science,
lungfish and sharks, for example, are just so distant
so like
that the only thing they have in common, more or less, is that they have fins and live in the ocean.
like jawless fishes such as hagfish and lampreys, they're in their own group because they literally do not have jaws.
Okay,
Yeah,
but
they are very.
What did you
They
say?
do.
They
do have.
mouths, yeah.
Okay, that's something that they have in common
It's
too.
just an open hole that they never close.
Like my asshole.
And then sharks raise chimeras, and like skates and sawfish are chondrichthyes, and their notable thing that groups them all together is they are made of cartilage.
Rather than bone.
And then you have ostenichthyes, which is bonefish, and those are further broken into lobed fin fishes and ray fin fishes. And this is based off of how they structure their limbs.
Yeah, if their limbs have some bones in them, generally lobe finned. If they don't, ray finned.
Well, they both have bones. It's just lobed fish have fewer but larger bones, and ray fin fishes have
very thin.
many bones, but they're all little. Yeah. And then this is, you have your lungfish, you have your coelacanths, then you have tetrapods, which is amphibians, reptiles, birds, mammals. And then you have Eurafin fishes, which is like further broken into. You have the ones that are like by shears and reed fish, then sturgeons and paddlefish are their own thing, and then gars are their own thing, and bowfins are their own thing.
And I think teleoste, I
Is-
believe, includes salmon, for example.
salmon, sardines, all kinds of stuff. Yeah,
I believe I've taken this episode on a rabbit hole.
about a 20-minute rabbit hole. Yeah.
Ian.
I'm not even done either, but we
Sorry,
can
what were we
put
talking
me
about?
off for another time because we should probably get back to the episode.
You know what we need to do, Stig? We sit down with just Braden and have a phylogenetics with Braden.
What
I
the
think
fuck is a fish?
I think I know how to simplify it, maybe just a little bit. But you know, Mirelurks from like Fallout, and then so Mirelurks. You have like the regular ones that look like mutated horseshoe crabs, but then you get to the razor claw like Mirelurks, and they're still called Mirelurks, but they don't look like the traditional Mirelurk. They look like lobsters now.
Yeah.
And then you get to Mirelurk Kings, which don't even look like a horseshoe crab or a lobster at this point. It looks like a salagua.
Mhm.
And then Mirelurk Queen, I don't know exactly what sort of crab a
I
Mirelurk
thought those
Queen
were
is.
based off like giant isopods.
Yeah, they are based off of giant isopods. You know how like they're all like different, but they're all still classified as a Mire. Actually, I think I'm just confusing things now myself.
No.
Never mind.
Because once you bring that into it, there's a completely different classification system for like the video games like in Fallout than there is for real life. So the Mirelurks are actually all considered insects.
Jesus Christ.
But what does it mean to be a Dunkleosteus?
I mean, so we could dive into it. So I was gonna say insects, crustaceans, all of those are all arthropods. And arthropods, their defining feature is they're all legged creatures with external
exoskeleton.
armor. Yeah. And they can do a plethora of things. And it's like, and the thing with arthropods is being aquatic, flying, or terrestrial doesn't even really matter because there's multiple creatures from each group that do multiple things. There's some that do that in their own lifespan.
Yeah, flight evolved independently in arthropods so many times.
At least twice.
Yeah.
Granted, there isn't that we know of any flying spiders, but there are spiders that can make hot air balloons and fly that
There are
way.
probably ones in Australia.
But no, spiders all over the place do the thing where they let loose a thread and let the wind carry them.
Yeah, they basically make a little hot air balloon. It's weird. Anyway, we're talking about an Allosaurus that doesn't exist.
But what does it mean to be a spider?
Generally, you have to have 8 legs.
Yeah, I mean, you're an arachnid, but you're also
but I only have
technically
3.
considered a decapod, which is a subgroup of arthropods, which is a subgroup of invertebrates.
And you have to have 2 body things. I forget exactly what they're called, but you have to have the head and
the cephalothorax and the abdomen.
Yeah. Whereas most insects have 3. I say most because some lost them for some reason. Anyway.
But what does it mean to have legs?
I'm gonna fucking stab someone, I swear to God.
Anyway, polar Allosaurus.
They suck ass, F tier.
I was gonna dive into polar Allosaurus more. So the polar Allosaurus is based off of Stragula, which is a foot bone. There's one known. It's been hotly debated of whether or not is this an Allosaurus. And the general consensus among scientists is like, a fucking course not. Why would there be an Allosaurus in the early Cretaceous of Australia? But to also answer Avery's earlier question of, do we have any Allosaurus relatives that made it to the Cretaceous? The answer is yes. Because, and these aren't like direct descendants, but they're like close relatives.
They share a common ancestor.
With the Neovenators, and then you have the Charodontosaurs, which that includes early and late ones. So you have stuff like Tyrannotide, Acrantosaurus, and then you have Keratinosaurus proper, and then you have Mapusaurus, Giganotosaurus, those kinds of guys. So yes, they do make it well into the Cretaceous. It's not entirely sure when exactly the last ones die out, but they seem to have mostly died out by the mid-Cretaceous. But yes, so Allosaurus relatives do make it into the Cretaceous. Some of these do live in the southern continents, like South America. I don't think we know of any from Australia. We know of some from Africa, and I don't think we know of any from Antarctica. We also know a couple from, I believe, Asia. And, of course, North America.
It's an Allosaurus in a fluffy coat.
Anyway, so
But
there
yeah.
are a couple different candidates for which the polar Allosaurus could actually be.
Just what
One
theropod would have been in the region.
is called Ozraptor. The problem with Ozraptor is it's known from the Jurassic, like the late Jurassic of Australia, and it's an abelosaur, and it's also known from leg bones. It's so there's very fragmentary remains in a lot of Australia.
My legs were too long.
This is in general what we think Ozraptor would have looked like. It would have been an albelosaurid.
Very pleasant color.
It would have been small.
Well,
So,
small as theropods go.
it's not that small. It's tiny.
Itty bitty.
Would have been a little
Just
bigger.
like-
Yeah, I think that one on the far right is probably.
And then there's another candidate, which the Walking with the Dinosaurs companion book listed it as is. It's a polar Allosaurus. It's identified as a Australovenator, which is possibly the best known theropod from Australia.
You know, there are some people that call me the Loveinator.
So Australovenator
Moving
is
on.
what's known as a Megaraptoran, and they are notable for their large claws on their hands. Hang on, I'm trying to pull it up.
And they would have been, but at least if what's labeling this is correct, they would have been there at that time period, roughly.
No, because Australovenator would have been younger because it evolved later.
Oh, so that infographic said 99 to 112 million years ago.
So this is Australovenator. That's the skull that we know of. But yeah, so Australovenator, I'll give some background on it. So Australovenator is a genus of Megaraptoran theropod dinosaur that lived during the late Cretaceous Winton Formation of what's now Australia, around 95 million years ago. So it's about 10 million years too young to be from this episode. But then again, almost none of the creatures in this episode are at the right time period. It's known from skull, and then you're missing some of the front parts of the body, but then you also have because you're missing the neck, but then you have a decent amount like the legs, the tail, the arms. And that was described in 2009 by Scott Hucknall and colleagues. And additional descriptions, analysis, and some other fragmentary remains have been found. Put it around 6.5 feet tall and 20 feet in length, making it the largest theropod known from Australia from substantial remains. However, there are some opalized fragments of slightly larger theropods that have been found at Lightning Ridge in like New South Wales. One of them may be an abelosaur. Again, for some reason, abelosaur's remains don't really fossilize well in Australia.
They're just shy.
So the majority of megaraptorans are known from southern continents, such as South America, which is home to most of them. But then we also have some possible in Africa, and one that's it's known from fairly good remains, where it's just unsure if it's a true megaraptoran from Japan, known as Fukuraptor. The skeleton of Australopithecus sported long muscular legs, would have allowed it to run at considerable speeds. It had jaws that were rather lightly built and teeth that were serrated but rather small. And it possessed, as I mentioned, remarkably long and flexible arms, which each bore a three-fingered hand and which each had wickedly long curved claws. I actually own a claw of Australopithecus, a replica. And an interesting thing about the claws were Australopithecus' hands and arms were capable of more flexible movement and like extension and like grasping than any other known theropod, or basically any other dinosaur that we know of. The only one who comes even close to it is Dilophosaurus of all things. Which is weird because you have stuff like Therizinosaurus, which doesn't even have near the flexibility, even though it has comparatively huge arms. So they were doing something special with their hands, which we think was probably they were mainly hunting using their arms as opposed to their like legs or jaws, which would have made them fairly unique amongst most predators.
They were lifting at the time.
So, Australopithecus, similar to many megaraptorans, have traits of both primitive and advanced theropods, meaning that it's kind of hard to place where megaraptorans fall out in the theropod tree. And it's likely that Australopithecus may be hunted in pairs or small groups, and likely preyed upon iguanodontians and young or smaller sauropods. Such as, Australopithecus is fairly famous for being found in sort of like the two animals that we think they fought each other and they died at the same place. And one of them is a titanosaurian sauropod known as Dinomentinosaurus. And so it's a pretty cool fossil of these two creatures that were found or it's been hypothesized that granted both of them aren't known from exactly the best material, but it's been hypothesized that these two died fighting each other.
Oh,
Beating them, Saurus.
But then again, some people have also hypothesized that they died separately at like the same water source and they just died around the same time.
One fell on the other.
Yeah. And here's art of someone depicting them in combat if it loads. Come on. Yeah. But yeah, that is what we know about the dubious polar allosaur. That if it is Australopithecus, it obviously is a not great reconstruction of Australopithecus. Hang on, I'll try and pull up a good art. Although the sizing is about the same, which is neat, I guess.
Get the baby one.
I see a lot of pictures
Here's
of them. Midland.
Australopithecus. And here, for comparison, is the polar allosaur.
Boo! Boo, polar allosaur. You suck.
It also doesn't have. It does look a lot like one of the models from the very early episodes.
It's basically just a mixture between the Eustreptospondylus and the Allosaurus models.
Yeah, that checks out.
And here's one skateboarding.
Because why not?
Yep. We want to put
Mistake. How accurate is this image?
10 out of 10. Don't you know, hawks are birds of prey? And so this is Tony the Hawk's ancestor.
I want to put this guy. I want to put this guy in F tier. He sucks shit.
Okay, we're going to put
Yeah.
the polar allosaur.
Yeah. Not all.
Yeah.
This dinosaur made us go on that half-hour fucking tangent. We should put this below F.
Okay, that's not that's fault. That's Braden's fault.
Before I
Hey,
rate
Brandon.
it, I have to ask a question.
What's up?
Does it have a high enough brain function to be classified as a fish?
Yes.
Probably.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a fish. S tier. No, I'm
To
joking. I'm joking.
To be fair, Braden is allowed to ask questions. You always explain like the fish aren't always. You always tell me that fish aren't always fish, and it's like I don't know what you mean, but I'll go along with
Yeah,
it.
I mean, like, if you're gonna tell me something that's literally contrary to things that I've been taught and learned beforehand, then I'm definitely gonna question it. Like, I want to know. I want to know what's going on.
Okay.
What's the next guy?
So we're putting F tier for the polar
Yes, F
allosaur.
tier. Because,
I will say it
because
has a cool color pattern.
their design dusty. The fact that they probably don't exist dusty. The fact that I'm kidding. No,
F tier for the not Allosaurus.
The fact that if it does exist, it looks nothing like it's supposed to. Dusty.
It fucked my mom dusty. It fucked my dad dusty.
What is the opposite of that? Like, what is that adjective even?
Dusted.
Moisten. That's the opposite.
Oh. God, where are we? Where are we even? In 10,000 years since we've been to this list.
Well, I already put him on there. I'm trying to find the next creature real fast, if it's on here or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, weren't there only like 3 major creatures this time around, or am I crazy?
There were
No.
technically 5.
Ah,
Alright, so...
The nose one.
I want to save that for last because I want to end on a good note.
Just follow your
The unnamed pterosaurs.
Yeah, those aren't on that list that were on here. Yeah, they're some kind of Australian pterosaur, which is I don't know. There's not many pterosaurs known from Australia, and most of them from the late Cretaceous. And we didn't get a good enough look at them to assign them to any real whatever they're supposed to be. So
The Generosaurus.
Oh, hey, what about the long-nosed raccoon?
yeah, that's what I'm trying to find.
Oh.
Those are coyote. It was live acted by a real creature called Coyote Mundi. I'm trying to see if it's on this list or not.
Coyote Mundi, which apparently is not a coyote.
It is probably a coyote. Ugly though.
Ooh. I don't know. It looked kind of cute.
Stag, it's right next to that monkey in the moon. Is that it?
No,
Damn it.
it's a different creature.
Oh! I think I found it. In between these two sea creatures, second to bottom row.
Second to bottom row.
Yeah. Just above the
yeah, there
saber-toothed
it
tiger.
is.
Look.
Yeah, okay. What the fuck? Why are they're put so weird in this list?
Listen, it takes me 10 minutes. It takes me 10 minutes to find reaction images sometimes. It's like that. Your eyes just glaze over it.
All right.
Do you know how hard it is for me to find a picture of a cat like going Yamaro? Exactly.
Up and roll.
Alright, so this is supposed to be. Okay, apparently the unidentified pterosaur is considered to be possibly this thing. So
This thing.
Sunday.
it is called Mithunga.
Oh, yeah.
I
Got a
don't know.
Mythunga on that thing.
It's real hard to see what pterosaur they're supposed to be.
Oh, thank goodness. I thought that said something else.
So this is the Walking with Dinosaurs, the depiction of it. Apparently, it's called in the companion book Steropodon. It's live acted by these creatures called coyote bundis, which are native to South Central America. They're actually fairly close relatives to raccoons, and they're
Take
kind
a
of
closer
like,
look at that snout.
and they're kind of like just
Sorry.
comparable in lifestyle to raccoons, except for these are far more social, where they'll like travel in big groups and live in
Can I
like.
keep
Raccoons
one
are
as a
just
pet?
assholes.
Raccoons are generally solitary. Occasionally, they live in like small groups. The creature
They
that it's
casserole for each
called
other.
in the book is called Steropodon. So
Friday.
Why does that look like a fucked up platypus?
Yeah, it's platypus without a tail.
because it's a very close relative of platypus. Why did they not live act with a platypus? I don't know. So
Were they
Steropodon
stupid?
is a genus of platypus-like monotreme, which are egg-laying mammals that lived around 100 to 96 million years ago.
Okay, that bone there. What part of it is
Mouth.
that?
Mouth. It's the
Okay,
jaw,
because
Jawbone.
so is it at the top or bottom jaw?
bottom jaw.
Okay. So I was trying to the way the front of it's shaped like the snout is on the depictions of it. I was like, is that the whole mouth somehow?
No.
It kind of looks like a horse mouth at the tip. Yeah.
So it's one of the oldest monotremes ever discovered, and it's the oldest Australian mammal fossil known. It is believed to have been very similar to a platypus in lifestyle, being semi-aquatic, having a beak, not quite having a beaver tail.
Hey, what up, man?
And just kind of like being semi-aquatic and hunting like crayfish and small fish
you got
and
any
varying
eggs I can eat?
vertebrates. It's known from. It's only known from a opalized skull, so so that jaw's from the skull. So it's not known from that best material, but it's very similar to a platypus's like jaw, apparently. Or not.
He's a silly little guy. Oh my
Oh.
god.
So yeah, so platypus are weird in the sense that this is all bill and this is where their teeth are back here.
Yeah, I mean that kind of makes sense.
Could I give him a little smooch?
They are venomous, so you should definitely do so.
Wait, so you're
Aw.
telling me the predator was enacted inaccurately and is supposed to have a bill?
Brayden!
No, wait, hear me
What does
out.
it mean to have a bill?
Look at those little prong thingies at the front. It's like the predators.
So yeah, Steropodon would have
Jesus
been.
Christ.
Yeah, I don't really have much else to say about Steropodon other than it's like it should have probably
Let's
been
scroll back
depicted
up.
much
Scroll
more
back
like
up.
a platypus.
Scroll back up.
Uh-huh.
How accurate is that one DeviantArt image that you keep scrolling past on the left?
This one, not at all.
Why does it look like an early 90s cartoon? What the fuck?
It looks like Courage the Cowardly Dog.
Wait, hang on. Sorry, we shouldn't be making fun of some of this art. Some of this art is really good. That was actually a really good image, I feel.
All right, so yeah. So Steropodon, where do we want to rank Steropodon?
He's just a guy.
I feel bad for the live acting Coyote because we mentioned it while watching the episode. Someone just threw dirt at this fucking thing.
Oh
The entire
yeah,
time.
because the main dinosaur displays a means of like warding off predators by kicking dirt. So they depict that by throwing dirt at this living animal.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. How accurate do you think that is, by the way?
The kicking dirt at creatures, yeah, most animals that nest will do that. Turtles will do that. Like,
I just couldn't help but thinking during that part, wouldn't it be so much easier to just reach down and eat that thing? It's like a tenth of your size.
well, it actually wasn't that small in comparison to a lineosaur, but like, also you're a herbivore. Why would you eat it?
Yeah.
But those dinosaurs were herbivores? Oh yeah, they were, weren't they?
Yeah, lineosauria.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. You know what? Yeah.
You know what? I'm a herbivore, but fuck you. I'm gonna eat you because you did that.
No, fair enough. I
Like,
wasn't thinking
the
at the time.
fucking-
To be fair,
uh,
that's how I feel about bugles a lot of the time. I'm like, fuck you, bugles. You're not very good at it.
You just become the wildebeest from that one not great Disney movie, The Wild,
The wild beast.
where one of the plot lines is a bunch of wildebeests are trying to be lions.
Huh?
For reasons.
Anyway,
Nice.
C tier for this thing.
Yeah.
C tier's fine.
So the live actor didn't have a beak, but I don't think it was its fault. So
Wait, are you telling me that they should have stapled a beak onto this animal? I'm kidding. No.
no, horrible. Just like tie one on like a party hat or something.
Tie on a party hat?
No, tie one on like a party hat. Is what I said, but I'm joking. Not really.
Joking, not really. I want to staple something on a fucking head right now.
I mean, have you ever played Squirrel Stapler? Kind of cathartic.
Excuse
Heard
me.
of Scroll with a
I
gun.
have not.
You want to
played
explain that?
Squirrel
There is a
Staple.
horror game called Squirrel Stapler, I believe. Hang on. Yeah,
Does it
horror game.
involve doing?
Beth, you can summarize what you probably do in that game.
It's like Dog Welder.
Yeah, I was gonna say Dog Welder from the Six Pack. There's a DC character named Dog Welder from like a joke team who welds dead dogs to people.
Yeah, yes. It's like some sort of like ancient curse, like all the way back to ancient Egypt.
Dog Welder?
Yeah.
What?
Motoburosaurus.
We were talking about. Oh yeah.
So Motoburosaurus is this guy.
There's a joke in that name somewhere. I'm just trying to think.
But
What?
So these are the giant iguantian shown in the episode. They are known from possibly the best remains of any creature shown in this episode, because there's like a full skeleton of Motoburosaurus. So Motoburosaurus is a genus of herbivorous ornithopod dinosaur, which lived throughout what is now Australia around 107 to 103 million years. So it shows up at the right time for the episode. We got
Hell
one.
yeah.
We have
Yay.
one motherfucker.
Ladies
One
and
who's at the
gentlemen.
right time.
We got him.
But it's from the early Cretaceous period. It has been recovered by some analysis as a member of the iguanodontian family Rhabdodontia, but apparently this group is fairly distant related from true iguanodontians. As such, there's some what do you call it, inaccuracies based off of the reinterpretation as a different creature, like different group. So it wouldn't have had the thumb spike like it's shown in the episode, because that's a very iguanodontian thing, and we don't think rhabdodonts had them. They also likely walked mostly bipedally, as opposed to being bipedal or quadrupedal, like a facultative bipedal, as shown in the episode.
I did find it odd the way it was walking, where it was walking on two legs and would occasionally just put one hand down.
Yeah. So it was discovered. It was described from a mostly complete skeleton found by Grazer Doug Langon in 1963 at Rosebery Downs Station, besides the Thompson River near Muddaborough, which is the Australian state of Queensland. In the Australian state of Queensland.
The dog. Dog's the mother on it.
So the remains were collected by paleontologist Dr. Alan Bartholomew and entomologist Edward Doms. After a lengthy preparation of the fossils, it was named in 1981, who honored the discoverer with the civic name Langdoni. Measuring up to 25 feet in length and 3 tons in weight, Mudborosaurus was a medium-sized ornithopod, which would have been equally capable. Sorry, I lost my place. Anyway, the most distinctive feature of Mudborosaurus is its snout, which bears a raised bump on the front of its skull, which in life may have housed a hollow chamber. The purpose of this chamber is unknown, although it's suspected that it either enhanced the herbivore's sense of smell or possibly amplified its voice. So this is showcased in the episode where they give it like these inflatable resonating chambers off of the skull. Which you can see in the skeleton mount, there is a raised area of the skull. This is fairly robust and thick. Now, there may have been like a fleshy or like a tissue, like inflatable sac on the outside of the animal's bone, but they weren't inflating this portion of their skull, although they could have possibly, and I think it's as shown in the episode, what they're doing is they're inhaling through their nose, and then they store that in like the boss, and then they use that air to then inflate the sacs and make the noise.
My sack is also inflatable.
Thank you, Beth.
Are you using silicone or saline?
Demon.
And a more understanding that's a Rabidontian depiction is this, where it's more bipedal, it's a little bit skinnier, it still has the boss on its head, but this depiction doesn't show it as having a resonating chamber. And here's one where it's also more depicted as Rabidontian, where it's a little bit more streamlined, a little bit more bipedal, and they give it like a little dewlap. Yeah, these were big herbivores. These were big herbivores. They're depicted for the time pretty accurately. Like, we now know they probably didn't like walk on all fours a lot of the time. They probably just stood bipedally the majority of the time. They didn't have thumb spikes. They were a bit more gracile build as opposed to not as bulky. Like, they reached the same overall length, but they weren't like as chunky. Does that make any sense?
Chunky.
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 I
I like them chunky.
So where do I want to put Mudaborosaurus?
like them. I think they'd be good at a B.
I think
Yeah.
a B.
I think so. Be braided.
Something generally solid.
But Braden?
B sounds good.
There it is.
Once again,
Mudaborosaurus.
very few of the creatures in this episode really caught my interest, except for the giant fucking salamander. So,
Okay, where do I want to rank the episode
Why did
as
you
a
say it
whole?
like that? Or the bug's not a thing in the...
So the bugs
ranking?
shown in the episode are just called Wettas, and those are real life animals that still exist. Do you want me to pull them up?
No.
Yeah, that's still about.
Also, what do you mean
And
by braided
They
with
also
the same
show a
salamander?
tuatara. They also show a
like that?
tuatara in the episode, which is a rhynchocephalian. So rhynchocephalians are a group of reptiles that, although they look remarkably like lizards, they are actually very distant related from lizards. And There's only one species one genus that still exists of them, called the tuatara, which is only native to New Zealand. And the rhynchocephalians date back to the early Triassic at least, possibly maybe late Permian. These are notable for they live incredibly lengths amount of time, they live like upwards of 100 years, if I remember correctly. They also are known to be able to like hibernate really well, which a lot of reptiles don't. Like a lot of reptiles do brumate, but these guys have more of a very slow lifestyle. They're very much used to having to just kind of like shut down at any point in time because the weather gets too rough. And they're able
I
to
do
just
that
like
too.
power through that. They get up to around 31 inches in length and upwards of 3 pounds in weight. They may live well past 100 years. Their eggs take up to 15 months to incubate before they hatch.
Yeah, long ass time.
They are known to share burrows with various seabirds, such as petrels and prions and shearwaters. And they are notable for having 3 eyes.
What?
So, tuatara have then you can see a lot in hatchlings, and here's an example of the skull. So, this is an orbit, this is an orbit, and then there's a third eye here, which is in life as babies they have it. So, hang on. Tuatara third eye. So, as young, they have them. As you can see, the third eye is right here.
What the fuck?
These get covered up with skin and scales as they become adults, but they're still
Yeah, that's
able
what I
to
figured.
sense light through it.
Kind of fucked up.
Yeah. And it's called a parietal eye. And they're not the only creature to have it. Some lizards also have it. And some frogs do as well.
What the fuck? What's the first time I'm hearing of this?
What creatures have...
What creature is Wednesday Addams?
I don't know why those...
There's a goth woman.
Okay, so tuatara, some lizards, frogs, salamanders, certain bony fish, and sharks and lampreys have 3 eyes.
Mhm.
Invertebrates. So yeah, tuataras, they're kind of cool. Where do
Are
we
they on the list?
I don't believe they
They're
are.
on the... Okay.
I'm gonna look real fast. From my scanning, I don't see tuataras.
Let's scroll up a little. Next time we do anything like this big, we're labeling it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alright. So where do we want to rank the episode as a whole? Spirits the Ice Forest.
So, personal opinion, I know the episode is called Spirits of the Ice Forest, and I get that the reason why it's called that is because the location is somewhere near the South Pole. But it wasn't very icy most of the time. It was only icy at the beginning and icy at the end, which
That's
it's not
half
necessarily...
the episode.
False advertising. False advertising. Ding.
It's not necessarily a deal breaker. I'm just bringing it up.
Yeah.
The practical effects...
Oh, the forest that freezes over is an ice forest FJ.
I'm sorry if somebody's gonna be like, "Oh, this animal has fat nuts," and I go and see the animal, and it's like, "Oh, the fat nuts it has is acorns," I'm gonna be a little annoyed because I was gonna.
What is this analogy?
Okay, so here's the thing. The forest is probably frozen a lot of the time, but the problem is there's not a lot of interesting things to cover for the episode. If they just showed a frozen forest with nothing happening.
Yeah, I suppose.
Anyway,
Anyway,
where will
It did feel did feel
sorry, you go
lower
first.
energy. It feel like lower energy than. Oh yeah, we forgot because we were talking about fucking fish for so long. We forgot to talk about the incel polar allosaur.
Oh, where they're fighting with each other.
Yeah, because it's like, a rival female shows up, and then he tells the rival female to fuck off from his corpse meal because he's based and red pilled.
I would put this episode in C. This one felt kind of
Yeah, honestly, I don't think not a whole lot felt like it happened.
Do we think? Well, I would say I like the Ice Forest almost. I like the Ice Forest more than the Ornithokairos episode because I feel
Really?
like
Yeah,
I feel like following the struggles of an entire group of small critters trying to survive in a very difficult location and watching their struggles as a group is kind of more interesting than watching a single creature just fly around the world.
Yeah, but the flying episode was more entertaining.
Yeah,
we
for me, this
had
one
more to
didn't.
joke about.
I mean, for me, this one just didn't really hold my attention very well. Maybe it's just the things that they did through. It just
You need to
the
put on
Frozen Forest
Subway
setting.
Surfers on the side.
No, the Frozen Forest setting I thought was really cool. It's a cool way to look at how Antarctica probably was, but everything after that it really didn't hold my attention.
When they had those dinosaurs active during the snow, is that a thing they would have done?
Yeah. There's evidence
Oh, okay.
that their dinosaurs of both the North and the South Pole were active year round. There's some evidence that certain ones possibly hibernated or brumated. But generally, it's believed that these were warm blooded creatures that were active in the dead of winter.
And my kind of ranking
And that's
criteria
also
for
shown
this.
that the amphibian brumates or hibernates, and that's something that regular amphibians do in our time.
What was I saying? And I've realized that a lot of my criteria for ranking these episodes revolves around like the effects, like the practical effects, the CG effects, just kind of everything effect wise. And like this episode's like effects were kind of like not super great. You had the puppet
Flip
that
effects, ritual effects.
yeah.
Okay, so Spirits of the Ice Forest goes in.
Yeah, see, just
Swamp
not a
Hole.
lot felt like it happened.
Yep.
Honestly,
Well, thank you for joining us. Join us next time where we do the end of the end of Walking with Dinosaurs, the first series.
Where we
Tune in
where we
next
go on a
time.
tangent for 5 hours.
on
Tune in next time
I
where
can
on
make
we're
that
worms or
happen.
something. Bye.